actually make it back.
Very few news stories, especially can be split easily down. For me, partiality means hearing the arguments weighed, and if they're not saying to you, that's what partiality makes me some journalists. Bulletproof is changing the chief inspiration anchor, Christian London. Beginning to see the objective. You know how we view the world, we look at it in a certain way. That's why I like it. So partiality by interpretation. You cannot on the one hand, on the other hand, the truth lies somewhere. So no, it absolutely does not. Sometimes the truth lies absolutely there on that side.
I do have an issue with impartial. Impartial sounds closer to neutral than objective.
I agree with it. Impartial for me means you have your own views, you stick them in a box, and then
So objectivity to me.
so I think we're talking about the same thing, which is
Same
usually
thing,
Christian and I can talk about it endlessly, but the text is how journalistic aspirations stand up to the heat of a live news story. Reporters in the pub in South Africa feel the pressure from the government to bring and the support from an international consensus how they have to go. What happens when the law is divided among rights and wrongs? Next time, the most contentious story I've ever covered. Should Zionism Palestinians and Israelis. Frontlines of Journalism is presented by Jeremy Byrne. The producer is Georgia Cannon. The controversial maximum security prison impossible to escape from.
Guns and Brits and Santries and Sansers. The only way you get out was in a wooden box.
The IRA inmates who found a way.
One of the duties of a political prisoner is the escape.
I'm Carlo Gabler, and I'll be navigating a path through the disturbing inside story of the biggest jailbreak in British and Irish history. Hearing from both sides.
Some were terrorized, and some obviously had a difficult breathing.
Escape from the maze on Radio 4 and BBC Sevens, starting this Monday to Friday at 1:45.
BBC News at 6 o'clock on Saturday the 13th of July. This is Chris Woodbridge. Good morning. President Biden has made a fiery speech at a rally in the US state of Michigan, telling supporters he'll beat Donald Trump again in November's election. Mr. Biden has faced growing calls from within his own party to step aside for someone younger after a series of gaffes and a poor debate against his Republican rival. Mr. Biden entered the stage in Detroit to raucous chants of "Don't you quit" for 4 more years. He made his intentions clear.
Nominated for because 14 million Democrats like you voted for him. You made me the nominee. No one else, not the press, not the funds, not the insiders, not donors. You, the voters, you decided. No one else. And I'm not going anywhere. I learned a long time ago. When you get knocked down, you get back up.
The social media giant Meta says it's lifting all restrictions on Donald Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts in the run-up to November's election. Former US president's accounts were suspended in 2021 after he praised supporters who stormed the US Capitol on January the 6th. They were reinstated last year but were subject to additional monitoring. Police have named the suspects they want to trace in connection with human remains that were found in 2 suitcases at the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. He's a 24-year-old Colombian national. Scotland Yard also said more remains have been found at the address in West London where a police search has been taking place. Our correspondent Joe England has been following developments.
On Thursday, police released a image of a man thought to have been taken just after 2 suitcases containing human remains were dumped near Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. They have now named him. Police say he is Jocelyn Andres Mosquera, a 24-year-old Colombian national. They also say they believe they have identified the 2 victims and that they both knew Mosquera. More human remains were located at the property in Shepherd's Bush. Police say they belong to the same 2 men. A 36-year-old who was arrested in Greenwich yesterday has been released without charge.
A judge in New Mexico has dismissed an involuntary manslaughter case against the actor Alec Baldwin over a fatal shooting on a film set in 2021. His lawyers had argued the police hid evidence of the source of the live round that killed the cinematographer Helena Hutchins during the filming of The Western Rust. Our correspondent Emma Vardy sent this report from the court in Santa Fe.
Alec Baldwin wept when the astonishing dismissal was read out by the judge. She said police and prosecutors had withheld evidence and there was no way for the court to right this wrong. The dismissal came days into Alec Baldwin's criminal trial in New Mexico after Mr. Baldwin's attorneys argued that prosecutors hadn't turned over a batch of bullets to the defense team. This box contained a mix of dummy and live rounds, which it's claimed came from the weapons supplier to the film set. Prosecutors will not be able to bring charges against the actor again.
The Speaker of the Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has said the scale of threats and intimidation faced by MPs is much greater than anybody can imagine. Speaking to the Westminster Hour on Radio 4, Sir Lindsay said he wanted to see a more tolerant and respectful House of Commons and would do all he could to ensure MP security.
We will work with security here and forces across the country to make MP safe. Their staff and their families as well. They matter to me. Democracy matters to me. That is a constant worry. If there is something that keeps me awake at night, it is the safety of MPs.
The BBC broadcaster Kirsty Walk has presented in a final edition of Newsnight after 30 years on the programme. The last show included tributes from leading political figures including Sir Tony Blair, Lord Cameron and Nicola Sturgeon. 69-year-old is to present episodes of Radio 4's culture and media show Front Row. That's the BBC News. Now we turn to the weather. Here's Hannah Willets.
Grace, thank you. It's a tale of two halves. Starting in England and Wales, across northern England, down into parts of East Anglia. A lot of cloud with some patchy rain today, misty over the hills, and then cool 14 or 15 with that breeze coming down from the north. But elsewhere, yes, it's cloudy to start, but I think the sunshine will start to break through, which will in itself trigger a few scattered showers. One or two heavy, even the odd rumble of thunder into the afternoon. Still cool, 18 to 19, given we're mid-July, but feeling pleasant away from that northerly breeze. Perhaps the chance of shower at Wimbledon for the ladies' final today. Northern Ireland, I think, will fare well for sunshine. That will break out through the afternoon, 16 or 17, light winds feeling warm, but it will trigger a few scattered sharp showers here as well. And to Scotland, finally, I think the Northwest Highlands, the Western Isles fare better for the sunshine. 17 degrees here, but elsewhere quite cloudy with some steady rain. Misty over the hills and around the coast, just 13 or 14 because that brisk wind is coming down from the northwest. Chris.
Thanks, Helen. Now for a look at the papers, and the Times focuses on yesterday's announcement by the government about the early release of thousands of prisoners to ease overcrowding in jails in England and Wales. It says the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has admitted that public safety could be compromised by the plans, which include violent offenders who have sentences of less than 4 years, among those eligible for release after serving 40% of their prison term. The Guardian says Ms Mahmood has accused Rishi Sunak and his former ministers of being the guilty men who failed to address the crisis. The FT Weekend says reform of the House of Lords is set to feature in the King's speech next week, with legislation to axe hereditary peers from the upper chamber among 30 bills expected to be unveiled. It reports that the move is the first part of an effort to slim down the Lords, being followed by forcing peers to retire at 80. The former British ambassador to Washington has told the Daily Telegraph that President Biden should suspend his re-election campaign because, in his words, the gaffes are not going to stop. Writing in the paper, Lord Darrett claims it's already game over for the 81-year-old, as clips of his disastrous TV debate against Donald Trump will be replayed 1,000 times before voters go to the polls in November. He says Mr. Biden has a legacy of a leader who got things done, but warns that will be tainted if he fails to hand over power. And a number of front pages look ahead to the final of Euro 2024 tomorrow. The Daily Mirror highlights how pubs will be permitted to open for longer to mark England's clash against Spain, while The Sun says the Three Lions have been backed to bring home the trophy by their former boss, Sven-Göran Eriksson. The Daily Express has launched a campaign for England's current manager, Gareth Southgate, to be knighted regardless of the result. It says fans agree it will be a fitting honour for the man who's turned England, perennial underachievers, into a fearless force. That's all look at the papers. More in the Today programme from 7 o'clock. Now on BBC Radio 4, we join Claire Balding, who's in North West Ireland for this week's Ramblings.
That is the sound of the Atlantic Ocean. I'm on the west coast of Ireland in County Donegal, looking out into a mist that is completely enclosing any horizon there might be, but I can see the shapes of rocks out to sea rising like a little armadillo, and there's a dark black sea stack rising in what I can only describe as a phallic shape. Anyway, over to the left, we've got the rise of these hills, very dark green with strips going through them showing paths, and there are dots of sheep across that hillside, and then the rocks coming down into the sea. Ian Miller is standing alongside me, dressed brightly in orange, so wherever you are in that landscape will find you, which is a good thing. This must have absolutely taken your breath away when you first saw it.
Yeah, when I first came down here, I just came for a look, I followed my nose, I followed the roads, and where you're actually standing is called a port, and it's the most remote, accessible public place in Ireland. You're quite correct, everything you can see has a name, and the Irish language names things how they look, sound, or feel. So your phallic stack there is Bujandal, which translates means the devil's penis. Your stacks over there, stack out vague, small stack, glass, the green summit. Everything has a name and a place, and yeah, I must go down here. Through a rock like that ice, I was absolutely speechless. There's no reference that we had to be right. And then it became a mission to stand on top of the mountain.
We will talk about your guiding and also your own adventures as a rock climber. And you said this has become much better known, this spot, than it ever used to be. Consequently, there are two camper vans, one called Explorer and Small, which I really like that as a title, and one sort of more traditional camper van that's clearly done its time. They know what they're up to because they've raised the left towers so that the level of the floor is absolutely flat. And your van, which says unique ascent, we are going to together undertake quite a steep ascent to begin with. So tell me about the route you're on here.
We're simply going to follow the coast north from here, and we're heading towards Glenmore, which is Ireland's largest place, Shingle Swan Beach, and we'll get to the highest point, we'll look at it, and we'll look down and see what we can see from there.
Knowing that was parked, I must have led the way. Scrambled up a loose rock, and I'm looking at the edge of a wire fence. There's a sheep ahead of us, lying down, munching grass. If you're looking at a map of Ireland, go right over to the top left-hand side, and the whole of that edge is County Donegal. It's got the longest coastline of any county in Ireland. Right over on the edge, as far as you can go, is where we are. You sort of feel like you drop off to the end of the world, and beyond us is America. Very, very remote, and the tracks, because they're barely roads that come in here, are single lane, grass growing down the middle of them, sheep all over them, potholes are plenty. It feels like an adventure just to get here, and that's part of the attraction.
I'm sure there's very few places left in which you can genuinely get like an outdoor experience that isn't, because it has got lots of other people seeking the same, and in 2 or 3 minutes time I guarantee we'll be on the road for the rest of the day. That's obviously part of the attraction.
Do you know what rock type this is? Because it's gathered in quite small little boulders, and it's white.
So this is quartzite. It's almost a sandstone, and you're about to see in a second a black vein. Your phallic stack, so it's the same material. It's the same as the Giant's Causeway, and it's the same vein of rock that runs along the coast of Donegal, goes across land, comes out of the Giant's Causeway, ends up the staff in Scotland, and it's a reason why this coast has got so many sea stamps in it. The Black Castle is much more resistant to the sea, whereas the quartz pretty much disintegrates.
situation instead.
Let's focus on your feet and breathing.
Time's really 5-10 minutes, but it's a weird vibe. The reward is the top that we have. It's high to ourselves. We can look right to the north. We can look across west. We can look south. And there's not another human being anywhere. That hunk of rock there, it looks like a lying down elephant. You see the backside coming up there across its back, and then the front of its head, and then that's its trunk.
Yep, down the back.
Out there.
That's Tornadoon, and about 120 years ago, you would take the wee ferries and take the sheep out, and a low tide you can get across. And there were sheep on that at the turn of the 1850 sort of thing. Not nowadays, it's an awful lot of work.
You're listening to Ramblings. I'm looking at Ian Miller from County Donegal. What brought you here? Because your accent is clearly Scottish.
I got asked to come here on holiday by the wife 26 or so years ago, mid-90s, maybe 30 years ago. And we're going on holiday for 2 weeks. And here we are. The general rule that if you find yourself moving to a rural place is that very, very quickly everybody will know you. And unless you're moving to a place with family or friends, you pretty much don't know anybody. And again, the general rule is never let the truth get away with a good story. So people will invent things to amuse themselves. We're all gossip. And as you live there longer and longer, you get to know people, and the gossip dissipates and you become part of the community. And once you're part of the community, it's really quite difficult not to be. It takes a while. It's the same, but it it's very, very simple. And the great test of the community is that if you ever get off the road and you're in the ditch, how long is it before a tractor appears and pulls you out? And this part of Ireland is very, very quick because everybody, if you live here and you don't help somebody's in trouble, then who will be in trouble next time and they'll be helped you. So as soon as you see an opportunity to tend to help people, it's going to be you next time. And that's a sense of community that gets lost when most people live together. Another reason why I live here.
That's one of the best definitions of community that I've ever heard. It's a place that holds you, clearly.
For sure, for sure. It's, in terms of outdoor activities and sports, it's not Scotland because Scotland's got a much larger and longer history of mountaineering and rock climbing. So what you find is, for me, is endless unclimbed rock.
And that is clearly a big attraction to you, to do something that you know has not been done before.
Oh, no, I know, I strongly suspect no one's climbed this before. And that's the adventure aspect. And if you define adventure by an activity in which the outcome is uncertain, then climbing sea stacks is most certainly fits that bill. It's, over the last few years, it's become more and more popular as climbing was in the Olympics, and a lot more younger people get into indoor climbing rather. But outdoor climbing in general has stayed the same, and the outdoor climbers in general are getting older and older. We're not being replaced. It's a big jump from climbing indoors to paddling out to a rock and climbing it in the middle of the ocean.
So that's what you do, you get on a sea kayak and get out there.
Yeah, it's either kayaks or small inflatable dinghies. Sometimes if a stack's quite close to land, say within 80 metres, and it's got quite a high surrounding cliff, like a basin around it, then I'll run a rope from the top of the cliff to the top of the stack, tension it, and then you can shimmy across on the rope, which for anybody who's got no air experience, abseiling, etc., it's a bit of a mind blow. You're completely on your own in the air with a tiny rope stretched out either side. It's not very reassuring.
No. I was walking yesterday, the programme that anyone listening would have heard last week, with Nikki Bradley, who said she credits you with giving her the confidence to do things that, with a prosthetic leg and on crutches, she maybe would have said a bit more.
When I first met Nikki, she wanted to stand on top of Errigal, which is Donegal's highest hill or mountain, if you like. And we kind of did that, and she realised that it wasn't such a big deal in terms of the anticipation as compared to the doing. And then I says to her, a couple of weeks later, it was November now, and we're going to do it again, or we're going to climb Muckish, but it snowed heavily overnight. So I text her and says, let's do Errigal in the snow. Of course, she says, yeah. Off we went. And about 300 metres from the summit, distance-wise, she said she couldn't do it. She was finished. So I just says to her, I tell you what, let's go on 100 metres and see how we feel. And you've got to have perspective on other people. So as a guide, I watch every day the whole time. I read people, I read their body language, I try and join the pieces together. Change of mental state.
It wouldn't be often though that you would have guided somebody who has one working leg and one that is in a prosthetic that's relatively new and they're trying to get to grips with the kit.
No, it's quite rare. It's also quite rare to have somebody that you've got to know well enough that you can bully into doing things within reason. You can. It's a poor analogy, but if you're looking after like a 10-year-old or a teenager and they're not doing something, you can tell white lies to keep them moving. And she knows that what I'm doing, and it just keeps the show moving, keeps her moving, and stops her starting to think. And over the years, we've just went further and further from the side of the pool.
We're still climbing, we've got the ocean way to our left, getting beyond that sleeping elephant island, rising gently. And you said, so you're originally from Scotland. Whereabouts, Ian? What was your life before you came here?
Well, I say I'm from Scotland. I was born in Aberdeen, mother's from Orkney, and I went to live in Orkney, but I didn't live there as a child. I lived in Dunoon and Dundee because mum and dad were both chemists, and that's where they worked. And when I was about 8, we went to a place in the northwest with a hill called Stack Polly. And me and my then 6-7-year-old brother, we climbed Stack Polly with my parents like way below, and got to the top. And even as an 8-year-old, I just thought to myself, right, this is it. Got to 18, got a car, and just started doing the Munros. And that's when I started to be alone. I found being alone meant I didn't have any other potential reason not to do something. At the same time, I went to college and I went to sea. I worked at sea, merchant navy, all around the world, delivering coal and barytes and all that sort of stuff. And the merchant navy at that time was pretty much jam-packed full of chronic alcoholics and people who weren't very happy in life. And the reason why I didn't follow suit is because whenever I joined a boat, I always had a reason to exercise, because as soon as I got off the boat, I was going to do climbing or hill walking. And ended up in Donegal, found this coastline, and before I know it, and it wasn't my plan, I'm running a business taking people out rock climbing. And then when it started to happen, it was really quite easy to make it a viable proposition to earn a living, if that makes sense.
Oh, what a great outcome.
If we just pause here for a second, and down below us now we've got a Anne Butchel, looks like a wine bottle, and To the north, we've got Tormore, and that's Ireland's highest sea stack. It's 148 metres high.
But that's a big, wide beast. That's not what I would classically call a sea stack, which would be like a tower.
But the only way to get on top of that is a really quite a technical rock climb. It's sheer on all sides. So the difference, in my view, between an island and a sea stack is there's no easy way to the top of a sea stack, no matter what the shape.
So in your rucksack, Ian, what would you have in terms of the safety aspect? What do you need to carry?
Well, I've got a very defined general rule that I follow without fail, and that's one assumption. And the assumption is today's the day someone's going to have a fatal accident. So,
Great. Okay.
and my job is to ensure that it doesn't happen. As a guide or leader, I've got to assume within reason what's the worst thing that could happen today. And I'm going to say one of us falls and breaks something below our knee, and it's not likely, but it could happen. And if that happens, have I got the things to stop it getting worse? Because what you find is when you have a minor mishap, like a twisted ankle, one of us can't walk that 2 or 3 kilometres